Welcome to the launch of the Audit Committee Forum, 7 position paper on Audit Committee guidelines for evaluation of retirement obligation. To begin with, I would like to call Mrs. Sheila Ajuda, who is the chairman of the Audit Committee Forum, to say a few words.
It is my greatest pleasure to have all of you here for the official launching of the Audit Committee Forum Position Paper 7, Audit Committee Guidelines for the Evaluation of Retirement Benefit Obligations. If ever there was a word that needed to be retired, it's the word retirement. Well, that was an old saying from a friend of mine. Initially, it was hard for me to understand its meaning. But later, I realized that my friend meant to say the following. These days, retirement is no longer a case of being presented with a carriage clock on your 65th birthday. Nor does it mean heading off to play golf for the next 10 to 20 years. In fact, a proper pension plan becomes a necessary evil. Employers' pension plans are the products of a modern industrial economy. Companies thus provide employees with a pension plan as part of a larger array of employment benefits. Such pension plans are structured in a way to provide a periodic and reliable source of income when the employee reaches the plan's normal retirement age. On the other hand, changes to life expectations and pension plans have meant that people are now expected to work longer and think more proactively about their future. Considered as a key employment benefit, therefore, pension obligations, or alternatively called as retirement pension obligations, represent a material disclosure in most financial statements of companies. It is important, however, to recognize that effective corporate governance relies to some extent on compliance with laws. And in Mauritius, some legislations affecting obligations are the Employment Rights Act, the Pensions Act, and the Statutory Bodies Pension Funds Act, amongst others. But being fully compliant does not necessarily mean that a company is adopting sound corporate governance practices. The Audit Committee has thus a vital role in questioning the valuation and sufficiency of any pension liabilities and disclosures as required by the accounting standards. The fact is that the net pension obligation appearing on the balance sheet may not in itself be significant, whilst the related pension assets and liabilities are significant balances appearing in the financial statements. Moreover, the valuation of these assets and liabilities, being complex in nature, rests on a range of assumptions and management judgments. An incorrect evaluation of both the pension scheme assets or liabilities could easily lead to a material misstatement in the net defined benefit liability or asset in the entity's financial statements. To this end, the design of the ACF Position Paper 7 as a valuable source of income, as a valuable source of information, has been an interesting challenge, enabling directors to digest the complex concepts of retirement pension obligations and fulfilling their role effectively.
I think the wake-up call about pension issue probably came with the financial crisis of 2007, when people found out that funds are mortal. They can be bankrupt, and the money just can fall through. And many pension funds, unfortunately, came to an end during that crisis. When we started discussions about this paper, we ended up with the title, and we were really exchanging ideas about how to entitle the paper. And came the term obligation, which is not quite something which finds itself in my vocabulary. Sorry. But it seems that it's the most appropriate term to be used. I'm more familiar with the term benefit than obligation, but I had to go with the democratic way of functioning of the Audit Committee and accept the word obligation, because I understand that obligation would probably go beyond legal obligation. It also it's understood that there is risk involved, there are compliance, but from a more benefit perspective, it's all about making the employee become more responsible, taking responsibility for his or her future, having some sort of employee welfare in the equation, but that's really my perspective. I would like to thank the Audit Committee Forum from two angles. The first one, because of the commitment. As you know, they're all volunteers. And the level of commitment which I have witnessed in that forum is extraordinary. The energy and the engagement that people put in that forum, in the discussions, to be able to produce that paper is really something that's noteworthy. So thank you for that. Thank you all those who are on the forum for your commitment, for your energy. It's a very dynamic and really concretely productive forum, because we are now issuing our 7th paper, so that's, I don't have more, 7th position paper, and very relevant ones for businesses.
Globally, KPMG has the same sort of partnership with the respective Institute of Directors in over 35 countries. Our network therefore allows us to draw from these countries for content and information. Our Audit Committee Forum focuses on oversight of financial reporting and audit quality and other issues of interest to Audit Committee members, including risk oversight, internal controls, and compliance. For this paper, just like we did for the other position papers, my KPMG team has been the knowledge partner with the MIUD. We have benefited exceptionally for this paper from the expert advice of Bernard Yen from Aon Hewitt, which is part of one of the global leaders in actuarial and retirement solutions. So thank you, Bernard. Again, today he will be addressing us as the guest speaker. This paper itself is unique in the sense that it takes into account not just sort of IFRS requirements, but also local legislations to ensure that the audit committees understand how the calculations and provision figures have been arrived at. And so we pretty much hope audit committees will better appreciate and challenge the numbers they are presented with and that they are called upon to sign off in their financial statements. When we started this project 6 months ago, we set ourselves a target of 31st of July. I can assure you, we didn't know that the employment law was about to be changed this very week. But what is important is legislations do and will continue to change. But the good thing is the basic principles in that paper will continue to be valid and in helping us understand how the numbers are arrived at. Despite this is a very complex subject and not many professionals understand. And this is where we often resort to the help, to the assistance of actuaries. The interesting thing is this paper is quite honestly quite simple in terms of plain English. As Pierre would have said, it's a complex subject made to look easy, and it's not. The language is simple, plain English, and I very much hope you will enjoy the reading.
And all protocols observed, I'm sorry, I forgot to check the protocol, so I'm greeting everybody in the right way. It's a great pleasure for me to address you today because I really get a flow where people tell me I have 15 to 20 minutes to talk, but didn't give me any requirements other than that. So I felt free to write a speech which maybe I won't read out, but it allowed me to reflect on my 30 plus years of working with pensions, because when I started working in 1985 in England, I wanted to work in insurance, but I didn't get, I got a job in insurance, but I didn't get assurance about the insurance company for applying for my work permit. So I got another job with Duncan C. Fraser at the time, which later became Mercer in Liverpool, to work on pensions. And I thought to myself, at 21, pensions, okay, I'll start with it because I've got no other choice, but I will soon switch to something more exciting after that. Long did I didn't really appreciate actually that this would be a subject of great interest, which still keeps me interested after 34 years now. Why do I say this? I share with you some of the experiences I've had in the UK in particular, and hopefully you can draw some parallels with Maurice, and hopefully we can all learn a little bit more about how to plan better for retirement. She has said she doesn't like the word retirement, or friend didn't like the word retirement. It's true that actually even retirement, the concept of retirement has changed over those years. Do people really retire these days? No, but retirement here means changing status and actually receiving a certain source of income if you're still working. So it's interesting to reflect on that because the model that I started with in 1985 in England was very different. At that time, there were loads of pension plans in place in the UK. And each employer, even the smallest ones, would have their own pension plan for their own group of employees, with the expectation that most of them will retire with the same employer 30, 40 years later, with a pension that would be based on their number of years of service and their last salary. So this is the defined benefit pension plan, as you probably know, which is typical in the UK. Typically, after 40 years work and you retire, you will get 40 divided by 60, which is 2/3 of your last salary as a pension. Very often, there will be a deduction for the basic state pension that is not negligible in the UK. So there is a formula that reduces that amount because you are getting it elsewhere from the state. In Mauritius, we have the same system. We have very many pension plans in Mauritius, defined benefit time, will provide the same formula, but will deduct something for the NPF, National Pension Fund, not the basic retirement pension. Maybe if the basic retirement pension continues to grow to the minimum wage or whatever, people will start designing pension plans to take account of that. But fortunately in Mauritius, we don't have this deduction for the basic pension, but we do have a deduction for the National Pension Fund, which unfortunately is very much misunderstood. And I think the opportunity to address you here as senior people to be able to explain if people challenge you about this, maybe your enterprise, you have this formula, why do you deduct National Pension Fund? Well, it's because you need to look at the two together. The employees are paid to the National Pension Fund. It's not any significant pension, so the employer in designing a pension plan for his employees is taking that into account and saying, we want to top that up or increase it up to 2/3 of final salary, which is like a benchmark worldwide to sort of say, well, when you retire, you don't need your full salary anymore. Certainly, you don't deserve to get paid full salary when you stop working, but ideally you should aim for 2/3 because hopefully the children are left home, they don't need to be looked after, and your living expenses, your house is paid for, so you don't need your full salary. This is basically the reasoning behind 2/3. So, as I was saying, the parallels between the UK and Mauritius are very important and has been very beneficial for me coming back to Mauritius in the year 2000 after 15 years working in the UK and Belgium and coming back here to find that Mauritius pension system was just the same as I saw it in the UK so many years earlier. But with their own challenges. So, how come that defined benefit pension plans today are no longer the majority? How come 30 years later these pension plans are reducing in number? We have more defined contribution pension plans. I'll mention some things from the UK perspective, and I think you'll be able to translate that into what's happening in Mauritius. In the UK, as I said, the pension plans had a deduction for the basic state pension, but it also allowed for the state second pension. There's an additional pension provided by the state in the UK, which is like our national pension fund. It was called SERPS at the time, State Earnings Related Pension Scheme. And employers who set up pension plans could contract out of that state scheme and obtain rebates on their national insurance contributions to be helped to pay for the pension plan they were setting up for their employees. So this worked well until the early 90s. EU legislation made it clear that sex discrimination was not allowed, and in particular was no longer allowed in employee benefits such as pensions. And what happened is, because these state pensions were not paid equally to men and women in the UK, some of you are from the UK probably will remember that the state pension age was 65 for men and 60 for women. And also, the state earnings related pension scheme, which many of these employer pension plans were trying to replace, had different accrual rates for women, so women could accumulate more pension more quickly than men. When the EU said you cannot discriminate against women or you cannot have sex discrimination, they, however, said the UK state pension can still remain unequal because that's a sovereign thing for the UK to decide. If they want to pay men differently from women, as a government they can. However, employers in the private sector cannot. But because they were deducting different amounts for men and women, they were forced to equalize upwards, which imposed some additional costs and complications for employers. Not only that, as the pension funds were in surplus in the 80s, I still joke with my colleagues from time to time in the UK, in Mauritius, to say that I've known pension plans that had contribution holidays. They can't believe that we can have that because our common pension plan in Mauritius is in deficit. But we had surpluses that we knew what to do with them. And so benefit improvements were made, government improved benefits for past service, imposing a lot of costs which could be supported at the time. But then when it came time, the pendulum reversed, when deficits started to appear, not surprisingly, employers found it very difficult to start contributing again. So this also was not very helpful. In particular, also, the tax authorities were not very helpful because tax authorities like to collect tax. Okay? One way to collect more tax is for employers not to contribute to the pension plan, because these contributions are tax deductible. And so they also, in a way, impose limits on pension plans not to have surpluses or not to have excessive surpluses, which, with the benefit of hindsight today, was probably wrong because now the reverse has happened. Many pension plans are in deficit and closing down. So, what am I trying to say with these examples? I think that retirement plans or benefit plans are long-term vehicles which should not be tinkered with. In my 34 years, I've seen so many changes in pension plans, but then pension plans naturally should have a life of more than 60 years, if you think about it. You need 40 years of contributions going in, and you need 20 years of pensions coming out. So you need at least 60, 70, 80 years for pension plans to stabilize. But in those 30 years that I've worked, there are so many changes that have been made to pension plans. And we are getting changes again today, not today, but this week, this coming week. For example, in the UK, in Mauritius, with a portable retirement gratuity fund, which is going to again change retirement planning. I hope for the better, but there are risks, from what I hear, that this could upset the landscape. To give you some more examples of what not to do from the UK perspective experience that I've had. Some of you will remember Margaret Thatcher and her Conservative government did a lot of good things, but one of the things that didn't work so well was the idea that employees, individuals should take care of their own future, should manage their own thing, and should view with suspicion whatever the employer sort of imposes on them, or any group of people imposes on you, right-wing sort of philosophy. Unfortunately, this encouraged the idea of personal pension plans. It's not a bad thing. Personal pension plans have a place. But what happened was that in pushing personal pension plans forward, many employees got the idea that their employer pension plan was not so good. And encouraged by salesmen, insurance company salesmen and agents who were more interested in earning commission, what happened was that many employees opted out of their employer scheme in favor of these personal pension plans run by insurance companies typically, without knowing that the employer will no longer contribute to their pension. Because the employer has set up a pension plan for their employees. If you want to opt out, you're allowed to because you have freedom. But then the alternative was personal pension plan, which only benefited from these national insurance contribution rebates that I was talking about. And which sort of misled people because they would always get anyway. So they became poorer anyway. Soon the authorities realized it, and there was a big mess had to be cleared up. It's the pension mis-selling scandal that some people will know about, and had to be reversed. People had to be allowed back in and compensated and everything. It was a big mess. It probably, in my view, diminished the reputation of pension plans and the pension industry as a whole. So which is another thing which I think is an example of political, in my view, pensions, the more you communicate, the better. It should be demystified, it should it should be explained, and politicians, unfortunately, do not understand the long-term nature of pension plans. Or maybe they do, of course, but they are not, their time frame for election is too short compared to the long-term nature of pension plans. And we commented on that long enough. Pierre will certainly agree with me. We keep saying, be careful not to increase the state basic retirement pension in Mauritius too quickly, because it has implications for future generations. We'll have to pay more taxes to pay for it, and probably better alternative would be these employer pension plans, for example, where you have a discipline to contribute and save regularly. I think I might have to stop here probably. I don't know how much time I've got left. But another example of what went wrong in the UK was Robert Maxwell. You probably remember. Robert Maxwell was owned Daily Mirror newspapers, and was also trustee and chairman of a Daily Mirror pension plan. So when things went a little bit difficult for his business in the early 90s, I believe, if I remember correctly, late 80s maybe, he was tempted to help himself or help his companies with the pension fund money, because he was also trustee and chairman of the pension fund. So this, of course, highlighted the potential weakness of trusts. UK has a history of pension funds set up under trust, a very old concept. A concept that goes back to the time of the Crusades, but a concept which to me has worked but needed more professionalizing. So this led to more legislation and probably really in the end discouraging many employers from setting up their own pension plans run by trustees from among themselves, and they started preferring multi-employer vehicles where they could just contribute and not worry about the management, which can be suboptimal, of course, but that's one thing which, unfortunately, again, I often say that because of one or two criminals, the whole population has to suffer, and this is perhaps one example of that, because there's suddenly more compliance and more compliance costs were imposed on pension plans. I think I would probably end here, but probably just a word about the Portable Retirement Gratuity Fund, which is being set up. I have one hope and one fear about this. One hope is that, of course, more people will be protected for their retirement, because currently the Employment Rights Act provides for a lump sum payment for service only with the last employer. And with more mobility, the last employer you work with or would be working for maybe 10 years when you are about 40 years. So the good thing is the Portable Retirement Gratuity Fund is a vehicle that will allow contributions to be made systematically throughout your working life, and not just and benefit from it instead of just the last employer with the last 10 years of service maybe. On the other hand, the fear I have is that lump sums are more sexy than pensions. So there may be a temptation, I've heard it from some union representatives the past week, to say that they don't agree that employers who have set up pension plans will not be required to contribute to the Portable Retirement Gratuity Fund. So, meaning that they would prefer that employers contribute to the fund in addition to the pension plans they have set up. Guess what will happen if this was imposed? Pension employers will say, we'll contribute to the PRGF, but we'll stop contributing to the pension fund because we don't get any credit for it. So this is my fear, and I hope that the second reading, I've seen the first reading, the bill as it is at the moment, is generally okay. There are probably some improvements have to be made, but I'm hearing that negotiations are still taking place, which is why the bill is not going through the second reading. There could be major changes. And I hope the changes go in the right way, not the wrong way. With this, well, thank you again for your attention. Maybe I'll finish with a little joke about pensions. No, maybe not. It's too serious. Yeah. No, maybe one thing I would say is, I did say love sounds more sexy than pensions. But I would take the opportunity to, again, because you are deep people of influence, and you may be able to teach that to some people who challenge you on this. Very often I get asked the question, if I contribute to a pension, and of course now we've got a defined contribution pension plan more often than not, which means that employers contribute for you, and then when you retire, whatever this buys as a pension, you will get. Maybe too low, maybe too high. You can't really predict whether it's going to be 2/3 of your final salary. But a lot of people tell me, what happens if I die the next day? Okay. So then you tell them, no, but usually these pension plans will guarantee your pension for 5 years. And then you say, what happens if I die one day after my 5 years? Then you tell them, well, if you haven't bought a pension that has continuous for your spouse or dependents, it will stop. And they say, but that's not fair. What happens to the money then? When I say, this money will be kept for the ones that have the misfortune of still living. Because when you die, you don't need any more money. But the way to explain this really is actually very simple, in my view. Everybody knows how the lottery works. Yeah? You know how the lottery works. A lot of people put a little sum of money, and then they channel the big sum of money to the lucky ones. Yeah? Insurance is similar, very similar. A lot of people put a little small sum of money and give it to the unfortunate one, the one who died. Yeah? In pensions, it's a little bit the reverse. The unfortunate person in pensions is the person who lives long, not the one who dies. Because the longer you live, the more money you need. So, in fact, when you die, you should not worry about where the money goes. You should be happy that your money has gone to help the unfortunate ones that are still living.